one good note to make is that these hash marks in the picture will tell you which angles are equal to each other. So in this case, we see that angle E and this angle. I should probably cut that out because I'm sure. Let me say that again because I'm certain the microphone just exploded in the beginning of the video. So I'm going to say that again. Welcome to this page is very similar to the last page. However, one good thing to know is that angles with hash marks of the same number of hash marks will be equal. So in this case, you can see measure angle E and this angle here are the same. Excuse me. You could say this is also angle E because they both have 4 hash marks. That means that this angle and this angle are the same. Now there are no other angles with 4 hash marks, so it just means that this one and this one are definitely the same. Okay. If other ones are the same, then it's coincidence. Okay. These two, I mean not coincidence, but these two are required to be the same, basically. Okay. Then down here we have the measure of angle R. You could say these are all R because they all must have the same angle since they all have 1 hash mark. Same here for I and J. I must equal J is what you could draw from this down here, and same thing for here. This could also be P. All right. So knowing that, if maybe that's what you were confused on, try it again. Pause the video, try again. I'm going to show you guys. I'm just going to jump right in, walk through how I did the last one, going from A to B to C to D, and working through and seeing what's up. So, for angle A, I first noticed that angle A is a linear pair with 28 degrees, which means it must be 180 minus 28 degrees, which is 152 degrees. Yes, of course. So A must be 152 degrees. Very cool. Since B is vertical with 28, that means B must be 28. So those are my two first answers here. Very cool. And notice B is vertical to 28, so it must be 28, but B is also supplementary to 152, which means it must still be 28. So these, as long as, if you ever make a, you'll be able to tell if you make a mistake because something won't line up, right? Okay. Now maybe of note is that P1 is parallel to P2 and P3 is parallel to P4. So P1 and P2 are parallel, P3 and P4 are parallel. No other lines are given as parallel. So we have to know, if we're going to use transversal rules, it has to be with these lines or these lines. So if I treat this like a transversal with these two parallel lines, I see that 28 can be moved around to here, right? I can move all kinds of stuff around. Now it's my goal to go straight to C. So the letter C here, I see is corresponding, since these two lines are parallel, this is a transversal. 28 corresponds to C, so this is a 28 degree angle. Same thing for D. I notice that it's supplementary, it's a linear pair with this guy. So I'm going to say it is 152 degrees from earlier work. So D is 152 for that reason. Now E is our first little tricky, I would say, well maybe not tricky, but you just have to kind of think about it. So I know that this angle in purple and this angle in purple are vertical pair. They're a vertical pair. So that means this whole angle here is 152 degrees, shown in purple. Well, if I'm splitting 152 into 2 equal pieces, how could I find measure of angle E? That's right, I could divide by 2. Wow, very cool. I'm hoping that, that's kind of like Dora, right? Where we can just do it like that. Anyways, this would be 76 degrees. Yes, 76 degrees. Okay, so that means E must be 76. So for E, we'll write 76. Very cool, very cool. Now you can also, if you wanted to, maybe if you didn't know what was up, you could just say, hey, this angle plus this angle is 152. That would be E plus E is 152. And then you could see that 2E, because E plus E is 2E, right, is 152. And then if you divided both sides by divide both sides by 2, you would get the same thing we did. Okay? So you can see algebra, if you can't just intuitively see what's going on, algebra can still help you. Okay? Write out what you see and then solve something that makes sense. Okay, anyways. For the measure of angle F, we notice that F corresponds to C, so I'm going to write 28 degrees. That's because this line forms the transversal between these two parallel lines. Okay? For the measure of angle F, we'll put 28. Alright, for the measure of angle G, that's next. I see that it's supplementary to 28, so it must be 152. So this is 152. Alright, and then the measure of angle H, which is right here, I see that it corresponds to G because this transversal goes across these two parallel lines. So G is corresponding to H, which means that H must be 152 degrees as well. Pretty cool. Now for my next one, I have to do I. So I see that I and J are the same angle. That's of note. I also notice that the inside of we don't know that yet, do we? We're gonna have to do this the hard way. Alright, so if you did not get I and J on your own, don't worry. Really what you should do here is use the fact that the interior angles of a triangle add to 180 degrees. Now, we don't know that yet. We haven't learned that yet. We did say it in class, and I offered you guys up to prove it, but we didn't prove it yet. So, if you did not know the interior angles of a triangle, sum to 180, don't worry, that's not on the test. But we will learn that next time for next class. But anyways, the way I'm going to prove this is I'm going to redraw my triangle down here at the bottom. So I'm going to take the same picture and translate it down so that I can draw a little bit of a clearer picture for you guys and show you guys how you could solve this without the clutter. So here's my triangle that we had. Let's see. Down here. So you can see my top angle of this triangle was angle H. These bottom angles are I and J, and actually this is called an isosceles triangle when these angles are equal. We'll learn that later too. Pretty cool. So I see down here I have a line at the bottom. Alright, and there's a point. So now that I have a line and a point, if I wanted to, I could construct a parallel line through, and I should say this is 152, right? I can construct a parallel line to this line through this point. Now it's not going to be perfect. I'm just going to claim they're parallel because I know it exists by the proof we did for Euclid's fifth postulate. So this angle must be 152 degrees. Now what I can do is use this transversal here. Since these lines are parallel, this angle I, and this angle right here must also be I. Right? This angle here must also be I because it's alternate interior to I. Well, same thing for J. This angle here must be alternate interior to J. This other angle here. So notice, now I and H and J all make a line. So that means I plus H plus J equal 180 degrees. So, knowing that, and since I know I is the same as J, I know that, let's see, we could write, like, I don't know, for example, since I is J, I'm going to plug in J for I instead. So I get I plus H plus I, which is 180. And I get 2I plus H is 180. Now I know 180 is 152, so if I plug that in, 2I plus 152 is equal to 180. I can subtract 152 from both sides to get that 2I equals 28. And so I must be 14. And since J is the same as I, we know that J must also be 14. Okay? Now this is the long, hard algebra steps. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. If you just see that, hey, I could take away H from this guy and realize that this plus this has to be 28, that's also fine. So back up here to the top, we see that I and J must both be 14 degrees. So I'm going to write those in my blank. Alright, guys, if you do not get I and J, don't worry, that's not going to be on the test. I'm going to provide you guys a way to use only transversal rules for this first test. In the later units, we will discuss triangles and stuff and get into that. So don't worry, it's coming. It'll be fun. We're just not quite there yet. Anyway, so continuing on to letter K, I see that letter K is 90 degrees. So that one's free. This one's just given. I know that this means 90 degrees, so I know that K must be 90 degrees. Then it says the measure of angle M. Now this is bad notation. This is a bad notation down here. You shouldn't write this in geometry, but we know that it means measure of angle M. So over here, this one right here, the measure of angle M, I see that it is supplementary to 62, which means it must be 150. Oh, whoa. My bad, I lied. That means 180 minus 62 is 118. Yes, so this is 118 degrees right there. And likewise, n is vertical to that, so it must be 62. So that means for the measure of angle m, we get 118, and for n, we get 62 degrees. For the measure of angle p, which is right here, I notice that this line forms a transversal with these two parallel lines, and so 62 is corresponding to this angle, so they must both be 62. Very cool. Yes, I was about to say, I think I lied. No, that's true. So 62 corresponds, so that means P is 62 degrees. Alright, for the measure of angle Q, you see Q is way over here. If we go over here, we see that Q is vertical to F, so I'm going to write 28 for Q. For a measure of angle R, we see that R plus R plus R makes up all of 180. So these are all adjacent angles that make up a line, so they must add to 180. So really what I know is that R plus R plus R is equal to 180, or 3R is equal to 180, or R is equal to 60, right? Another way to do this is just to notice 180 has been split into 3 equal pieces, so we divide 180 by 3 to get 60. That's how we know R must be 60. And then for S, we see that this transversal is formed between these two parallel lines, so that means R and S must be alternate interior angles, and so S must also be 60. And finally, for our last one, measure of angle T, we see that T is supplementary to this guy, so it must also be 28 degrees. Beautiful. It's also alternate interior with B if you wanted to do it that way. So very cool. Alright, so down here I have all my answers. Guys, don't worry about the triangle. If the triangle confused you, we'll talk about it more in depth in the next section. Alright, for the next page, I'm going to show you guys, I think the next 2 pages are proofs. So try these on your own, and then I will go through, I'm going to do both pages in the next video to show you guys both proofs.